At dawn, the chamber breathes awake in silence. Through the narrow, latticed windows, light spills in muted patterns, fractured into diamonds across carved oak beams and the folds of embroidered hangings. The air is heavy with perfume and dust, a mingling of sweetness and decay, as though the walls themselves carry the memory of centuries of women who have performed this same quiet ritual. A noblewoman sits in stillness before her table, where a polished disc of Venetian glass reflects her face in softened shimmer. Her maid kneels beside her, stirring powders of crushed pearl into rosewater, the faint grit dissolving like snow into liquid light. The chamber smells of lavender hung to dry in linen sachets, sharp vinegar cooling in small earthen jars, and the thick musk of woolen gowns that line the walls, hidden in shadow. These scents cling to her breath as she waits, hands folded in her lap. The silence punctured only by the gentle scrape of pestle against stone. Beauty is not leisure, here it is duty, and her body is its altar. The maid dips her fingers into a pot of beeswax ointment, smoothed with oils pressed from rosemary and thyme. She lays the mixture upon the noblewoman's skin in deliberate circles, pressing, softening, concealing. The ointment glistens briefly in the dim morning light before vanishing into pale flesh. A second layer follows an unguent of herbs, bitter and sharp, meant to hold youth at bay. Each touch is purposeful, each gesture rehearsed like prayer. Beneath the veil of ritual lies truth. Her complexion is a silent contract with power. Pale skin speaks of leisure, of purity untouched by labor, of worth measured in alliances that may bind families together for generations. The mirror does not show the labor behind the light. It reveals only the surface, smoothed and perfected. Behind her eyes, however, thoughts move as quietly as the dust motes dancing in the shaft of light. How long will this face command respect? How long before the whispers turn? She does not speak them aloud. To the maid, she is serene, veiled in dignity. But the chamber is never wholly private. Outside footsteps echo against stone floors, servants passing, a pageboy whispering near the door. The scrape of wood as someone pauses in the corridor to listen. The chamber, though closed, is porous, its air alive with unseen ears. Every ritual here is both sanctuary and stage, watched even when unwitnessed. At last the veil is lowered. A thin fabric of silk, faintly perfumed with violets, conceals the hidden work of her hands and her maids. To the world she will appear untouched, her radiance effortless. Yet within these walls, the truth lingers like smoke. Beauty is labor, and labor is survival. She exhales softly, her gaze resting on the glass disc, not with vanity, but with resignation. For beneath the powders, the ointments, the unguents, lies a woman both preserved and imprisoned. Her face, flawless as porcelain, is a mask she must wear in silence. And as the dawn deepens into morning, the chamber holds her secret, carrying her forward toward the next ritual, the next gaze, the next day in which her beauty is demanded as much as her breath. The curtains are drawn wide, and the chamber floods with pale morning light. Dust floats upward, rising like incense in a chapel, catching along the edges of woven tapestries that hang from the stone walls. Stitched in their threads are hunts and saints, stags pierced by arrows, angels unfurling wings of gold, a virgin haloed in blue. Yet these sacred and noble images pale beside the truer testament scattered across the lady's table. Their combs carved from ivory lie among pots of white powder, so fine it clings to the air like ash, and brushes stiff with boar bristles wait beside small glass jars, tinted green with age. The chamber hums with its rituals. The faint rasp of pumice stone against skin scratches gently, a sound both intimate and relentless. From a silver basin drips honeyed water, each droplet marking time as it falls, cool and sweet against the heat of the enclosed room. A chambermaid bends over her work, careful, practiced, while the lady sits unmoving, her hands resting on her knees, as if in prayer. Beyond the walls, bells toll from the cloister. They measure the hours not by joy or freedom, but by obedience. Each peal falls into the chamber like a reminder. Life here is ordered, partitioned, bound in invisible chains. Inside, beauty is not pastime. It is duty as binding as the prayers that echo from the church beyond the manor walls. To tend the body is to tend the fragile thread of survival. A woman's face may decide her marriage, her alliance, her children's inheritance. Powder and ointment become scripture, and the chamber is their altar. Her fingers lift to her temples, rubbing in oils distilled from rosemary and sage, the scent sharp and bitter as it clings to her hair. These oils promise to preserve youth, to guard against the creeping shadow of age. She whispers a fragment of prayer beneath her breath, not to God, but to time itself. Sic transit Gloria. May the years pass slowly. In the polished disk of her mirror, her face looks back at her with both clarity and cruelty. The smooth skin she labors to keep is not only hers, it belongs to others, to men whose gaze weighs heavy, though they are absent. She wonders, with a flash of unease, whether she tends her body for herself, or for the court, the family, the husband who will measure her worth in the softness of her skin. Her reflection gives no answer. The chamber door creaks closed as the maid slips away, leaving behind the silence of labor unfinished. In the air lingers the smoke of rosemary burned in a small bronze dish. Its scent is acrid, clinging to the veil of her gown, stinging the edges of her eyes. She inhales deeply, as if the smoke itself might hold the power to preserve her. For a moment, she believes the illusion that these secret rites, these oils and powders, might shield her from the march of time, from the slow unraveling that no woman escapes. But as the bells toll again, their iron voices shake the chamber walls, reminding her that beauty fades as surely as sound dies into silence. She lowers her hands, folds them in her lap, and waits for the next ritual, the next act in a performance that must never end. Night descends slowly upon the stone manor, and the world beyond the walls sinks into stillness. Within the chamber, only candlelight remains, soft and golden, turning the room into a cocoon where every shadow breathes secrecy. Wax drips steadily down tall tapers, their flames swaying with the faintest stir of air, and the glow rests upon embroidered hangings, silver clasps, and the carved lattice of the bed. It is not silence that reigns, but the hushed rhythm of ritual, the whisper of cloth, the rustle of ribbons, the careful touch of hands upon skin. The noblewoman reclines upon a nest of cushions, her body half surrendered to the summer heat. Her hair, unbound and flowing, falls like a dark river across her shoulders, and her attendants move around her with practiced grace. One mixes a paste of milk and almonds in a shallow dish, the fragrance sweet and faintly sour, before smoothing it across her face. The coolness spreads upon her flushed skin, and for a moment she closes her eyes as though retreating into a dream. Another maid kneels beside her, drawing her hair into long braids and weaving ribbons soaked in rose oil, the scent rising with every pull. The gestures might appear tender, intimate, but beneath them lies a truth sharper than steel. Her beauty is not her possession, is inheritance and currency, a dowry without coin, a shield against disgrace. To maintain it is both obligation and cage. Each ribbon tied into her hair is a knot binding her to a future already chosen by others. Her reflection polished not for herself but for the eyes that will judge, desire, or discard. The chamber is private, but never beyond reach. Its walls shelter her body, yet her name and her face wander beyond them, carried in whispers through corridors, across feasting tables, into the councils of men who weigh her like silver. She may sit here hidden, face covered in almond paste, hair perfumed with roses. But already her beauty negotiates without her, making promises she has never spoken. The candles tremble. Their flames catch upon the rim of the silver basin placed near her couch. The basin holds water still cool from the well, reflecting not only her image, but the faint wavering light of the room. When she dips her fingers into it, washing away the paste from her skin, it feels like an erasure, as if yesterday's fatigue, yesterday's aging, yesterday's silent fears might be dissolved and carried away. Each cleansing is not only for purity of flesh, but for the fragile hope of tomorrow, a hope that time might be persuaded to wait. Beyond the shuttered windows, the call of an owl cuts through the night, low and solitary. It is a sound both mournful and eternal, a voice of the wilderness beyond stone and ritual. The noblewoman hears it, and in its loneliness she feels her own. For though she is wrapped in cushions, perfumed in oils, tended as though she were relic or queen, Solitude presses upon her more heavily than the air of summer. The candle flames lean, stretching long shadows up the wall. The chamber holds her splendor but also her silence, a silence that no ribbon or ointment can soften. And as the night deepens, she remains within it half-preserved, prisoned waiting for dawn, when her painted radiance will once more be displayed before the world she cannot command. The morning fire smolders low, its embers sighing in the hearth, breathing smoke that mingles with the sweetness of lavender tucked carefully into sachets between the linen chests. Ash drifts upward in thin streams, painting the chamber with a haze that softens every corner, as if the room itself resists waking. Light trickles through the narrow windows, pale and cool, illuminating the chamber's quiet theater. Here the day does not begin with haste, but with the long labor of transformation. A noblewoman sits in silence, her stillness deliberate, while her handmaid bends over a mortar of stone worn smooth by years of grinding. The pestle moves in patient circles, reducing bright pigments into dust so fine it clings to her fingers like flour. On the table, a curious order of tools lies waiting. Vials of vinegar steeped with rosemary, their sharpness piercing the air, small jars of honey, golden and thick. Folded strips of cloth soon to be steeped in waters, scented with herbs. These are not luxuries, they are instruments, no less binding than the rosaries counted in the chapel. Each step unfolds with reverence, though it is not prayer to God that guides the handmaid's work, but a devotion to ideals pressed down from the court like commandments carved in stone. The noblewoman lowers her face as the powders are lifted, her skin touched with brushes stiff as straw. Smooth with cloths dampened in vinegar, softened with honey rubbed in circles upon her brow. The gestures are practiced, the ritual ancient, and yet beneath its familiarity there is weight. For these touches are not for her own pleasure. They are the chisels that sculpt her into a vision demanded by others, the court's hungry eyes forever searching for a symbol of purity and grace. In the faint gleam of polished metal, she catches her own reflection. The surface is imperfect, clouded, showing not only her face, but the wavering of firelight behind her. She does not see a woman. She sees the lineage pressed upon her shoulders. The expectation that her beauty will honor family, secure alliances, bear children worthy of name and fortune. Her eyes soften with something that is neither pride nor joy, but resignation. The mirror in its cold truth reminds her that her appearance is both armor and chain. Beyond the chamber walls, voices carry upward. The distant laughter of servants drifts like smoke into her sanctuary, light and careless, free in its rough music. For a moment, she wishes she could follow that sound. Let her hair fall unbraided. Let her skin breathe without the burden of powders. But the chamber holds her still, tethered to its ritual. Here, time does not move with the rhythm of laughter or the turning of seasons. It stands suspended, caught in the endless repetition of preparation. The fire crackles once more, a single spark breaking the silence. The noblewoman closes her eyes, surrendering to the brushes, the cloths, the hands that craft her face for the world. When she opens them again, her reflection will not belong to her alone, but to the gaze that waits beyond the door. By twilight, the noblewoman's chamber is thick with perfume. Violet water has been sprinkled across the rushes and dripped into bowls set upon the window ledges, so that the air glows with sweetness. Yet the scent is heavy, cloying, almost suffocating beneath the close wool of the chamber drapes. The room breathes not of freedom but of enclosure, its fragrances both balm and shroud. The fading light outside dies into rose and gold, but here within the candles take command. Their flames restless, bending the air with shadows that flicker across carved oak and worn embroidery. At her feet the maid kneels with patience, brushing the noblewoman's hair with long strokes, each pass, slow, deliberate, echoing like a lullaby murmured into the hush of evening. The hair falls over her shoulders in dark waves, rippling with the rhythm of the brush. For the lady this touch is not indulgence but necessity, nightly unwinding that prepares the strands to be braided, bound, and perfumed once more at dawn. Even the softness of this gesture, tender as it seems, belongs not wholly to her, but to the ritual of preservation that governs her life. On the oak table rests a chest of secrets, small and unassuming, yet more powerful than the golden reliquaries of a church. Its lid lies open, revealing powders pale as bone ash, their dust clinging to the edges of glass jars. Ointments glisten within little pots, their surfaces smooth and yellow with beeswax, faintly gleaming like melted amber. There are tinctures too, liquids thin and sharp, drawn from herbs and metals. Some promising radiance, others concealing the peril of slow poison. She touches each with reverence, aware that these substances are both remedy and threat, as dangerous as they are desirable. Each application is a gamble whether to glow with the court's approval or to carry unnoticed a sickness in the blood. Her hand lingers on the edge of a vial, and in that hesitation lies the truth of her existence. Beauty is here both fragile and perilous, never fully her own. It is a veil spun daily, delicate as spider silk, woven not from joy, but from fear. Fear of decline, of whispers, of being set aside like a gown gone out of fashion. Her body is her script, her face the parchment upon which others write their expectations. She is the vessel, not the author. From the hall below, laughter rises, muffled yet insistent, the rough music of servants gathered near the kitchens. It drifts upward like smoke, filling the chamber with a reminder of another life, unmeasured by tinctures and mirrors, a life of bread broken in hunger, of songs sung in jest. For a moment the noblewoman listens, her eyes half closed, her breath caught between envy and longing. The sound feels like a door opening, though she cannot step through. The chamber presses inward once more, a reminder that even in absence her body is watched, her presence accounted for, her silence recorded. At last she raises the small glass mirror from the table. Its surface catches the candlelight, shimmering gold upon her face. In its polished depth, she sees not only the smooth skin preserved by unguents and ash, but the prison that lies beneath, the knowledge that each ritual guards her against time, even as it binds her more tightly to fate. The mirror shows both preservation and captivity, a face preserved like a relic, and a soul held behind glass. She lowers it slowly, the flame quivering in her eyes. Outside, twilight deepens into night. Inside, the chamber closes upon her, violet-scented, candle-lit, eternal in its repetition. Tomorrow will come, and with it, the ritual again. But tonight, she sits between two truths, radiant as the court requires, and imprisoned by the very radiance they demand.